Welcome back, CMB Sports Show, coming off of the anticipated announcement of the top four. As you can see, Cole, where once I guess the camera will pan to you, like this new updated technology we got, just rocking Alabama to the gills. Y'all sneak in there over Florida State. Do you feel guilty at all?
Um, I mean, a little, I think Jordan Travis, like terrible injury, hate it. But according to um like their rules or not their rules, but I don't know what they call it, but their standards of picking the top four, not having a key player, I think that matters. And if you don't have Cardell Jones as your third string, like it's tough. You put up 16 against Louisville in the ACC championship. I mean, that's not great. Cardell Jones put up 59. It was 59 to nothing when he won his Big Ten championship. I think that's something to look at. If the Brockemeyer would have been available, they might have put up some bigger numbers. I think that's definitely up for the debate. But not an easy choice for the committee there. I'm very grateful. You know, I know it's in contrary to what I'm showing here, but I am very humble and very grateful for the selection. I think sweeping the SEC is definitely notable. We had a lot of good wins. Um, you know, I don't I think any loss is bad. But the way we bounce back and improve from it, I think is good. So, I hate it for Florida State, but injuries happen and it's part of the game. And when picking for four teams, this is just the perfect example of why we're going to 12 teams. I think this is like the perfect lead up to the 12 team playoff.
Yeah, it was kind of like poetic justice that, going into the week, everyone was like, well, if this happens and this happens and this happens, eventually the committee's going to have to decide. And I think originally the argument started, how important is it that Texas beat Alabama head to head if Alabama has a better strength of schedule? Because everybody thought that one spot, if Alabama beats Georgia, the Pac-12 champion is going in. The argument is Alabama or Texas. And then as the week went on and as yesterday went on, that
Mm-hmm.
argument shifted to, is Florida State good enough to make it? Like, is Florida State going to be that much of an embarrassment in the college football playoff that we can't put them in there?
Yeah,
And I mean, I don't hate it. Like, I think it's crazy that Florida State didn't get in, but in reality, I do think Bama has a better chance of beating any of the four teams. I think Texas has a better chance of beating the four teams. But one thing to think about that nobody's really talked about was, who do you think would win, Georgia or Washington? To where I feel like they set the precedent of, we're trying to get the four best teams in there. In my opinion, Georgia would still be favored over all four teams in the playoff right now.
for
Like in
sure.
a month with a healthy Brock Bowers and McConkey, if they could get healthy in a
Yeah,
month, I think Michigan maybe that's probably like a pick 'em. But if even though Alabama won yesterday, if that game's played again, Georgia would be favored again.
absolutely. I fully agree with you there. Like, I think, people talk about Ohio State, their bet or their only loss is to now number one Michigan. It's like, where do you evaluate them? They also, they beat Notre Dame, which I would put in the same neighborhood as Florida State beating LSU. I think that's a very comparable loss. Um, that's one thing to also debate about. I mean, they were just thrown out to the wayside, for not playing in their conference championship, which we've seen before. Um, I think that Georgia would definitely be favored against Alabama again. Um, I don't know if it's as much. I think which it still opened at, I think it opened at 4 or 5.5 or something like that. And it went up to 6.5. So I think it would probably still be three, maybe open up and people would take Georgia. I still don't think a lot of people would take Bama, to be honest. But, you know, they say conference championships matter. So, that kind of puts Georgia behind the eight ball. I still think that Washington, as they might be bad matchups for teams with maybe weak secondaries. They have uh, people say they have three NFL wide receivers, so I definitely think that checks out. They have Michael Penix, who's a great quarterback. I think he puts his team in difficult situations for their what their roster is. He's not as polished, I would say, as I would like to see him be. As being a older quarterback, he throws a lot of balls, kind of 50-50 balls. But I mean, I would too with their offense or with their offensive talent. But you know, I think that I don't know how deserving Michigan and Washington are of those 1 and 2 spots. I think they've had pretty weak schedules, just to be frank, and I think there should have been a lot more debate for Georgia and Ohio State, and I mean really Alabama and Texas. Like if we're talking best teams, like Michigan obviously beat Ohio State, but if they play again on a neutral site, what does that look like? They have a very talented offense. So I think there should have been more debate with I guess you don't really get to talk to the committee much, but with the people, with the analysts and stuff like that, I'd like to get their take because they kind of just threw Georgia and Ohio State away when really I feel like they deserved a spot at the table. Maybe not a spot at the table, but a discussion at
Right.
least.
Because I mean, I think putting Alabama in over Florida State definitely shows that they're saying we're trying to get the four best teams and not the four most deserving because like it's just a weird way that the way that they did it because it's like the 1 and 2 spots to me is most deserving and the 3 and 4 spots are the best because I
Yeah,
think if you were to just look at like we're discounting Florida State for their last 2 weeks to where they've played the backup quarterbacks the last 2 weeks and they haven't looked great or their offense hasn't looked great. Their defense looked phenomenal yesterday.
phenomenal.
Like Louisville averages like 33, 35 points a game and they shut them down. I know it was
Yeah,
ugly ball, but still like the a defense has to hold something. That's why it kind of shocked me that they didn't get in just because of how good their defense did look.
yeah,
But I am glad that you said it that you think Georgia would be favored because I think a lot of people, a lot of Alabama fans will disagree with that. And if I say it, it's just me being an Alabama hater. When I don't like Georgia either.
yeah. You
Like
shouldn't.
I
Yeah,
was very open yesterday saying that I was
yeah,
rooting for Alabama to barely win and both teams look bad, so neither one of them would get in. I mean, I don't hate Alabama more than I hate Georgia. Like, I don't know. But I think, like you said, four best teams over the last couple weeks. Texas is probably number one, in my opinion.
yeah.
Like over the last 4 weeks, the
Very
last
fair.
month. Um,
Since
Alabama's got an
Ewers has been
argument
back, since Ewers has been back.
back and fully healthy.
Yep.
He played a little and struggled, and then that's when we found out like, all right, he's hurt, and then he kind of was rushed back and still looked pretty bad. But like the last 2 weeks, they've looked awesome. And to
Yeah,
me, yours is the best quarterback like in the country. Like I think from a just
absolutely.
pure quarterback standpoint, like Milrose's game kind of translates a little better for college because of how athletic he is. But
For sure.
I don't know. It's crazy to me that this happened, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ewers is the most NFL ready. A lot of you talk to NFL people that do the draft or whatever, they're going to tell you Caleb Williams is the obvious number one. And that may be the case. We might look back 5 years from now and say, Caleb Williams definitely. But I still think that Ewers right now is the most NFL ready. He has every throw in the bag. He throws like a Russell Wilson esque deep ball, like super high. He's got the arm and he's got a little bit of dog in him. He makes a lot of dumb plays where he puts his body at risk, but he's just got that it factor, I think, when it comes down to just, doing whatever it takes to win. Um, so I think that I mean over the past couple of weeks, I think Texas has looked the best. I don't want to slip into kind of an Oregon eye test situation there though with Texas. They haven't played the best competition, but they have played, the competition they've played is at least competent. Obviously OU State was the OK State was the number 2 team in the Big 12 somehow. I guess Oklahoma fumbled the bag somewhere in there. I mean, they deserved it. I mean, they played in the same conference, and beat whoever they had to beat and got there. So you can't discount it too much. Like it's a Big 12 conference championship game. So, um, I think that Texas definitely deserves a conversation to be a little bit higher than maybe Washington, just because they lose. That's not end all be all. I think one way that I think about it, and why I I take my Alabama glasses off and agree with the move they made for Alabama and Florida State. If the schedules are flipped, how does it look? And I just don't know if Florida State, even with Jordan Travis, can make it look the same. I still think Florida State probably loses at home to Texas. Um, they probably in a hurricane, they probably go to take care of business against USF. But you play that SEC schedule, it's tough. I mean, Ole Miss only lost to Alabama and Georgia. That was it. I mean, that's like a Penn State kind of, like they're very good, top 10. They only lost to the 2 best teams in the country. So you still have to play LSU if you're Florida State. So, I don't, I think that that's how I look at it. If the schedules were flipped, how would it look? Like if Texas played Washington's schedule, how would it look? If Texas played Michigan's schedule, how would it look? And I think, Texas probably runs the table on both of those. So that's how I kind of look at it, to make it make sense. And I don't know if that's how the committee looks at it, but I think it definitely reflects that. Maybe not from a ranking standpoint, but from being the top 4, making it into the pool of top 4, top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a good way to look at it. It's just so hard to compare like two teams with two different paths.
Yeah.
Like Michigan, how do you compare? Let's say you put one of them in Michigan's schedule and you're just like on a cakewalk until Ohio State.
Yeah.
You got to beat Ohio State at home. Like, do you think Florida State could have done that with a healthy Jordan Travis?
I mean,
Probably.
I think so. Yeah. I think that's a very fair point. It's like nobody looked at Michigan's schedule and was like, hold on. Like, let's think about this. Like their coach, they were obviously cheating or not
Twice. They were caught
they were
cheating
breaking
twice
the
this year.
rules. They were cheating in 2 different ways. Their coach had to sit out for 2 different reasons, and the only thing they had to look at was beating Ohio State at home. They had to
Yep.
prepare the whole year for that moment. Florida State couldn't do that. I definitely think they could. So that's like now you're looking at Alabama versus Michigan in the first round. Not to jump ahead into the matchups, but Alabama kind of maybe got the benefit of, or not the benefit of the doubt, but the a good draw, I guess, for an unproven Michigan team.
I mean, I think if I was a fifth team and I had to play these four teams, I think like Michigan and Washington are the two teams I would volunteer to play first. I think
For
I
sure.
would go Washington and then Michigan. And then Texas and Alabama, I would say it depended on what I had. Because if you don't have a defense athletic enough to keep up with Jalen Milroe, you've got no chance. Now that they've started using him in the run game a lot more, which is obviously working. Like
Yeah.
every team, even Georgia, there was a lot of plays they were having to put two spies out there.
Two
And
spot. I
like,
don't think I've ever seen that.
no, that's because you can't just put a spy in the middle because he's going to beat him in a foot race. Like you have to put two spies on the edge and only blitz two guys. That's insane.
Yeah.
But we can talk about the games. You want to talk about last night's game, or you want to talk about the matchups first?
Yeah, we can talk about last night's game. We can talk about yesterday. You know, Alabama came out. I thought they did what they needed to do. They kind of got shoved around in the first drive and kind of woke up after that. But like I know I think about the Iron Bowl the way I think about Alabama, Georgia. I feel like they were very similar, maybe not in play style, but in the way the game kind of developed. I think that Alabama, Georgia, or Auburn comes out, looks a little overwhelmed first drive. Alabama gets the ball, shoves their way down the field with the running game, scores very easy. And you look at the way Alabama Georgia played out, it was the same way. Alabama comes out, gets the ball, looks terrible. Georgia comes out and shoves their way. That team gets punched in the face. How did Auburn respond? They went down and scored. I think there was a drive there. They get a stop, then they go down and score. I think it was pretty similar. And so the way those two played out, that was just fresh in my mind. I just thought there's so much you can tell so much by a team how they bounce back in that second half of the first quarter of being punched in the face. And it was just the way how you respond, which I mean, honestly, the way that the defense stepped up in the second quarter and then the second half was massive, even with the hurt players that Georgia had. Bowers wasn't 100%. Lad McConkey looked like he was 25%. Um, I think stepping up, Alabama had some guys out too. Kool-Aid got hurt. Amos comes out, backup quarter. They come at him immediately with Bowers, and he just shuts it down. So really should have been a pick. And so I don't know. I thought that they did what they needed to do. Georgia missed a field goal, which is outrageously rare that kind of those mistakes happen. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And then thinking about what's frustrating for you guys, like I hate to bring it up, but like I think it's more optimistic for Auburn though. Like they look at these games, and it's just like in 2019 or when 2020,
2017.
when it was the last one where it was really close and we went to the playoff. 2021, really close game, and it's like Auburn's right there. That's all I kept thinking about during the SEC championship. Like Auburn plays these teams really tough, and I'm gonna be honest. Like you guys getting all these 5-star receivers, like all that's in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about it, and thinking about especially playing Georgia. You gash them in the passing game. That's where their weakness is. So Auburn's there, but I think that as far as yesterday's matchup, it looked like Alabama kind of just responded and wore them out in the second half more than anything.
Yeah, I think from a outsider's perspective who was rooting against both teams, Georgia, comes down and they obviously had a very good game plan to start because their first drive, almost looked effortless. Like there was 2 or 3 different pass plays where I think I texted in our group message. I was like, does Alabama have enough players on the field?
Seriously.
Like these guys are both open there's nobody within 15 yards of them. They're getting it first downs at will. They're mixing the run and the pass play action really well. And they score. And I think they got a stop and got the ball back. And then they went full on passive mode where I don't want to lose this game. I don't want to put the ball in the air and lose this game. We're going to run it. 1st and 10, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 6, we're running it.
Yep.
And Alabama caught on, and I think you saw like the shift and change of like from a confidence standpoint, like from the way the play calling was from the coaches, to where Georgia's were like, we don't want to lose. And as soon as Bama like smelled that blood in the water, you see the defense starts coming in. They're stacking the box. Like the cornerbacks are making good tackles on these plays to the outside. You can't run anything in the middle because everything is stacked. And Georgia's best 2 drives was the opening drive and the last drive. And the last drive was to where it was like, we have to score here. I think everything goes out the window, and they put together a good drive. But to me, the 2 coordinators, the offensive coordinator for Georgia played scared, and the defensive coordinator for Alabama played extremely confident. And obviously it worked. And even in
Yeah.
a game that was like, a lot of people were talking about the catch that wasn't a catch, that, backyard football, that's catch. In the
Yeah.
NFL, that's probably not a catch.
Right.
either way, like I wasn't super like swayed one way or the other on how big of a deal that was. I know it's kind of like Alabama scored on that drive, so it's a 7 point swing at least.
Yeah,
Georgia has the field goal lined up, gets a false start, I think, or delay a game, one of the two, and backs up 5 yards. And then
huge.
actually it ended up missing it. And you can seriously watch like the field goal is in the upright until the last little bit and then it hits. So I mean I think if they play again, like we said earlier, Georgia's probably 2.5 point favorites.
Yeah,
And if their coach scared again, Alabama beats them again. And
yeah,
I know I've heard you talk about it a lot, like Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele, like how far they've come this year. And I do think that's a huge testament to them of just like Georgia played yesterday like they haven't ever beat Alabama, and Alabama played like they always beat Georgia.
yeah,
And it's like the last 2 years just had no weight in that game at all. The team with the most confidence was Alabama, and the team scared to death yesterday was Georgia.
yep. And I think that play calling kind of what I was thinking about, why I keep bringing up the Iron Bowl. I mean, Auburn gashed Alabama out like C gap outside the tackles on the edge. It felt like Georgia was trying to do the same thing, like Alabama wasn't going to adjust to that, and there was nothing there. Um, so I think that's a big, like you said, bringing up the coordinators, like that's a huge adjustment one week to another. With Kevin Steele, I mean, how many times you see a lot of teams do a lot of the same thing? Like if you watch one team each week, a lot of teams will attack a weakness, and to adjust that to where that was like a strength on our defense was containing the edge. I think that's huge. Um, that's a huge adjustment. So I think that played a big role, being able to stop the run. Obviously, like they can't just chew clock and keep it out of Milroe's hands, which I think in a backdoor way kind of helps us. Um, you know, Milroe tends to make some weird decisions at some times, so kind of helps us. He is dynamic, but at the same time, we like to play with the lead. Obviously, playing with the lead is going to help anybody. So I don't know if they're exactly built to play from behind. So that definitely benefited being able to jump out to a lead. Um, but yeah, Tommy Reese coming down the end, like using quarterback runs at the perfect time. Milroe just saying like, "Hey, nothing's there," getting out of the pocket, like that's huge. Being able to run the ball between the tackles for Alabama was huge. And if you can do, I feel like if you can do that against Georgia, you should be able to do it against anybody. So going into the playoff, that's something to watch. Michigan can clog the middle a lot and very well. So that'll be a big matchup, our O line versus their D line. Um, but yesterday, I just think that's how we kind of wore on them. We're always getting 3, 4, 5 yards a run when it mattered. When the times we kind of stalled out, we kind of got cued a little. But those drives where we really drained clock and ended in a field goal, or even if we didn't really make a lot of the drive, we would still pin them deep in their own zone and kind of get a stop and get the ball back. So being able to run the ball in between the tackles and move it with quarterback runs or run the clock out at the end of the game, I think that's huge. And I think that's why Milroe had a lot of success this year, just being so athletic and being able to be a good college quarterback. You don't put too much on his shoulders. Just
Right.
be a part of the system.
Yeah, they've definitely like opened it up and let him use his legs a lot more. And because I feel like the first half of the year they were trying to turn him into like a pocket passer who's going
Yeah,
to stand there and pick a team apart, and that's just not him.
not him.
Like it's extremely demoralizing whenever he's back there for 5 seconds and then you actually and your secondary's playing great and has everyone stopped and you actually get to him and he just gets out of there and ends up making a 10-yard sack into a 2-yard gain or whatever. Even though it's not like game changing, there are very few times where you're going to get back there to him. You have to get your hands on him and you have to get him down.
Got to.
And he's the best in the country right now of avoiding that.
Yeah. I just think he is the most mobile quarterback going into the playoff. So it's definitely something to watch. I mean, he keeps you in the game no matter what. As long as you don't get down big, I think I think you're always in it. You know, if you keep it one possession, two possessions, things can flip, especially with our defense. So, but going to a different game, like like the Texas Oklahoma State game, Texas just flexed on folks, didn't they?
Oh yeah, that one wasn't very close at all.
Um,
Like I think it was like 35 to 14 at half. I mean, Texas's offense is clicking. Texas defense is very good, and they just, Oklahoma State likes to run the ball, and Texas just kind of punched them in the mouth and never gave them a chance.
yeah.
So, have you seen the spreads for these matchups yet?
I saw the Alabama game was it's opened up at Michigan a point and a half.
Have you seen
That's all
what
I've seen.
Texas and Washington is? I
Mm-mm.
want you to guess. Guess that line.
I would say Texas probably 6.5.
4 is what I had first saw it at. Texas -4.
I think I think maybe the market might move that. What do you think?
Probably you think it's going to go up in
I think
Texas's favor?
I think so. I don't know. I think it should. I think if you're a smart bettor, you think it adjust that because when you think of when you think of Washington, they stop Oregon twice, and obviously the public thinks very highly of Oregon's offense. When realistically, how good were they against a competent defense? Um, so that might be kind of like the outlier where everybody thinks like, oh, well, Washington will be able to put up points and all that stuff and stop Texas a little bit, but I just don't. I don't think that's the case. I think it's Texas by 10 plus, to be honest.
The only thing about Washington is Washington gives me TCU vibes to where it's like everyone thought they were going to lose to Oregon. Like they were 10-point underdogs against Oregon,
Yeah.
against a team they'd already beat. It's like all year everyone's just kind of been like, yeah, this team's eventually going to lose. They'll work themselves out, and then they just keep barely winning these games. And they have, the Heisman caliber quarterback like Duggan was for TCU. I think there's something about a team that just keeps winning.
Yeah.
Like I really like Texas. I honestly think Texas is like the favorite to win it all, in my opinion.
I think
But
that's fair.
um, there's just something about a team that just has won every game. Like that's so hard to do, to not have one hiccup. Like Milrow has the hiccup against Texas, throws 2 picks. He's 19. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Texas has the hiccup against Oklahoma and loses. Washington has won every single game, and we talked about how deep the Pac-12 was all year. Like there wasn't very many off weeks in the Pac-12. I don't think the Pac-12 was as top heavy as like the Big Ten or the SEC was,
Yeah.
but 3 through 8 in that conference is as tough as they get.
Really tough.
There was no like guaranteed wins on that schedule. Like even a team like Colorado, if you let them, they would beat you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One thing to call out here, Texas Washington played in last year's bowl game, the Alamo Bowl. Quinn Ewers played. Bijan Robinson didn't play, so that's obviously a hit for Texas. But I don't know who didn't play for Washington. But Washington did go 11-2 last year. Texas went 8-5. Washington wins last year in the bowl game 27-20. Probably this pretty similar team. I don't know. I don't know that much about Washington. If they got transfers or did they have any a lot of freshmen playing? Did they graduate a lot of people? I don't know. But that is notable. 27-20 last year. Quinn Ewers threw. He went 31 for 47 with 369 yards and a touchdown. Michael Penix Jr. went 35 for 54 for 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. They ran for 100. The running back, I don't know, Wayne Tula Papa. To La Baba, yeah, 14 carries, 108 yards. So, I mean, that's definitely. I feel like it's notable. They've seen each other before, semi recently. Different Texas has a different team, maybe a little bit. Probably better defensively, I would think. But them meeting again in the bowl game, I think that's definitely some kind of significance, whether it be payback or maybe Washington takes it to them again. I don't know. What do you think?
I remember like early on kind of catching on to Washington how good they were early, like first couple weeks of the season. And then like I said, a lot of teams were kind of just a lot of people were just kind of waiting on them to lose to somebody. Listen to this. They won 56-19 week 1, 43-10 week 2, 41-7 week 3 against Michigan State week 3. I think that's when the public started to catch on like hey, this team's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
59-32 against Cal. Now this is when it all starts. They beat Arizona by 7. They beat
Mm-hmm.
Oregon by 3. Arizona State by 8.
Mm-hmm.
Stanford by 9. USC by 10. Utah by 7. Oregon State by 2. Washington State by 3. And then Oregon again by 3. So they've won every game by 10 points or
Or
less,
less, yeah.
which I do think that's like a pretty brutal stretch. Like
Yeah.
Arizona, Arizona, Oregon, USC, Utah, Oregon State, Washington State, and then Oregon again. Like that's pretty brutal, but still, I like teams like that to where it's like we're just gonna win.
Yeah, they do what it takes.
Yeah, like there's not really any style points in there, but I would lean Texas. Like
I think Texas has just got a little bit of that dog in them.
I
Like,
think they're a little more complete.
yeah, a little bit more polished. They've kind of been a team. Sark's been there what, 4 years, 3 years, 3 years, I think.
That sounds right.
Uh, he's kind of has his stamp on it now. He has his players in there along with Quinn and Ewers. Their defense is pretty nasty, pretty salty. Do you think they've seen a defense similar to Texas's this year?
No,
Because
honestly,
Oregon's is pretty terrible from what I've seen. Even though Dan Lanning is their coach, like they seem to always give up some kind of points, even when they score like 70.
yeah. No, I don't think they've seen a defense like that. I mean, on the reverse, I don't know if Texas has really seen an offense
It's a good point.
like they have, but it's crazy, man. I actually took Texas to win the whole thing. They're plus 285.
I think that's a great pick. Because I mean, I'll be honest. I think Alabama beats Michigan. I think Michigan is just I don't want to say less talented Georgia team. I think that's what they are. They run the ball well. They play solid defense. They don't give up many deep balls. Like you're going to have to earn, you're going to make long drives and earn your yards. But I just don't think they do it as well. And they're not as disciplined as a Georgia team as far as their coverages and things like that. And, we've seen in years past how they kind of respond in these games against really good teams. Um, so I think that's something to watch. But I do think we will get a Alabama Texas rematch in the national championship, and I think that will be an absolutely epic game, and that will be the true national championship. Whatever you think about Georgia, uh, I think this Alabama Texas getting a rematch will be a really good true championship. But that being said, I think both of these games are going to be probably some of the best we've seen out of the playoff. I don't really see much blowout here or blowout potential.
Yeah, I don't either. The
Because
my
really,
reason
go ahead.
my reasoning for it honestly was just because like I do deep down I do think it's either Alabama. I think Alabama, Texas, and Michigan are really, really close whenever it comes to like a talent And, just all three to me are pretty complete teams and like whole teams where you can't really just like pick something and take them out of the game.
Yeah.
But Texas getting to play Washington helps because, Michigan and Alabama is basically a pick 'em. If you were to put a future on either one of them to win that game, like right now, Michigan is plus 175 and Alabama's plus 200. You would be betting on Alabama plus 200 to win two games that are going to end up being basically coin flip games.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to strike twice for that to work. To whereas if you take Texas plus 285, your odds are better, and you're going to be a four or like you said, this might get up to 6 or so point favorite before the game starts, and there's one of those out of the way. To where Michigan, same thing. Like that first round matchup, Michigan Alabama is going to push a lot of people away from taking them, I think.
Yeah. Just something to different to think about. This does swing in kind of Alabama's favor, just because of recent recruiting. But looking at on 247 Sports, they have like college football team talent, like the based on your recruits that you have on your team. So it's a little bit skewed toward recent recruits that maybe aren't playing yet. Um, but Alabama does have the favor here at number one with the most talented team, according to this. Texas is at number 6, and Michigan is at 14, and Washington is at 26. So I think you're kind of on point there with the Washington TCU comparison. I think TCU was in the lower 20s last year. Actually, we could check. Um, they were just a gutsy ball team and well coached, had kind of lightning in a bottle. But how much does that mean when you think about it? Because last year Alabama was again number one, didn't even make the playoff. Like Georgia was number 2, Ohio State number 3, A&M was number 4 last year. Not even in the discussion. So it doesn't carry a ton of weight. It's just something to think about when you're evaluating rosters and things like this, and teams you want to take. If somebody is super underrated, or when they're evaluating rosters, you might want to swing kind of the other way if like Texas is 20 points or 20 spots ahead of them. Just
Right.
something to think about if you're betting on it. Like last year.
That shocks me that Texas is higher than Michigan. I
Yeah,
kind of expected Michigan to be like top five.
right. TCU last year was 32. um so that kind of, when you look at it, obviously, what is it, hindsight is 2020. You're looking at it like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Like they shouldn't even be on the same field as Georgia. Like Georgia was outrageously talented last year. Um, but like beating a team like Michigan, like sometimes that doesn't matter. Like your recruiting rankings don't really matter as much. But and I think this year it's definitely substantial. With Texas in their first matchup with Washington.
Well, how do you think these games go? You gonna go Alabama, Texas?
I think it's going to be Alabama, Texas. I think Alabama has the athletes against Michigan. Athletic rosters kind of give them issues. Like you look at Maryland, kind of gave them some issues. They run a very SEC style offense, very fast paced, with the athletes kind of spread out everywhere. And Alabama's definitely down to get dirty with you and in the trenches. So I think they kind of have a favor in that matchup. And then I think Texas leans on Washington with their kind of balanced approach with offense and defense.
Yeah, Sark's seeing Sark call plays is unbelievable. Like
It's a it's amazing.
I'm hoping it's what I get from Hugh Freeze next year
Yeah.
because he doesn't need all the talent in the world to win. Like he schemes up things to where the guys are just open on pretty much every play.
He takes whatever athletes he has, he takes them and lets them do what they're best at. Like putting like when he had like Devonte Smith, like he was doing whatever like made him great. Like I remember one time they did the orbit motion behind the quarterback, hike the ball, and he just takes off running the other way, wide open for a touchdown. It's like something we've never seen before,
Yeah.
and now you watch the NFL, like Tyreek Hill does it like every week. And it's like just getting your athletes in space. Like he's just so good at it, doing it in creative ways that every time you watch him, you're going to learn something. If you're like a high school offensive coordinator, like he's probably the guy you want to watch. You want to watch every Texas game and you're going to find out like, okay, that's how I get an athletic receiver in space, one on one. And he's just so good at it. And when you have the resources that a major team, especially like Texas, but like think if you think of like Auburn or Alabama, somebody that can get athletes from anywhere in the country, like you get an athlete in space, it's going to be a touchdown, like a strike up the band kind of play. I mean, I think that is the key, especially in modern football, getting your athletes in space. And I think that's one thing that he does really well. I think that's something that Hugh does really well. And that's why he's so big on recruiting outside. I mean, he was the same way at Liberty. He was the same way at Ole Miss. So I think he's definitely. What do you think? I mean, I think he's definitely done a good job so far in just a year and a half.
Oh yeah. Like to me, you can tell like watching an Auburn game when Hugh has the play sheet and when he don't. Like
Absolutely.
one that I noticed, just because like the Sarkeesian type stuff that you see where like guys are in motion and the way it affects the defense. So I remember one of the plays, I think we scored on it or got close to the goal line with it, but he sends a guy from the right in motion across almost like he's going to take a jet sweep. And you see the Alabama safety come down on that side to protect on that. And then next thing you know, a guy runs a wheel route like right past
Yep.
the safety and he's wide open and nobody's around. And it's like that guy's on a different level when it comes to calling games. And we need him to do it every time. And I see a lot of that in Sark too, to where that's going to be his ticket is he's just that much better. Like he's the best offense coordinator in the country, probably. And if he can just find, some guys that can recruit for him and keep bringing in the money to pay all these guys and a good defense coordinator, he's going to be around for a long time. Like
Yeah.
Texas is going to be in these conversations year in and year out. So they can just keep a competent quarterback. And if you're a quarterback, who else would you want to play for?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just think. I honestly hate that they're coming to the SEC. I work with a lot of Texas fans. With our headquarters being in or right outside of Austin in like a suburb of Austin, and it's awful. I hate it. I mean, they're going to be really good. And what I hate even more is they're going to be really good in every sport.
Yeah.
That's what I hate. They're really good at basketball. They're really good at baseball. They're really good at softball. They're really good at volleyball. They're like their best sport is volleyball. Not that that matters,
Swimming.
to a
They're
ton of
another
people. They're really good
elite
at
swimming.
swimming, golfing. I mean, everything. Every sport you can think of, they're going to be extremely competitive. And Oklahoma is honestly right there with them. Um, I don't want to say little brother esque, but like they have their own things that they're good at. But kind of a step down a little bit. Maybe softball, they're pretty good, but um, I think the true little brothers A&M. No shots fired, but just saying, um, they better figure it out quick, or they're going to be embarrassed for the next 5 years, 5+ years. So I don't know, man. It's definitely going to be interesting next year. You only have your permanent opponents, and everybody else is rotating. So I think any kind of run like Georgia just had is going to be pretty much not heard of. You have your certain schedules, like this year, Oklahoma State didn't play anybody in the state of Texas, and which is crazy in the Big 12. I mean, you think about how many Texas teams they have, and that's probably why they made the Big 12 championship game. But you might have some instances like that in the SEC where maybe you kind of stay on the eastern side of the geography of the conference, but it's going to be, I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to it. Good conferences. with the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12 ish, 12-team playoff. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to the future.
And I know a lot of we didn't even talk about the Iron Bowl or anything. We'll have to hash that out when it's not so fresh.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
my one like good thing about the Iron Bowl, I know a lot of people are talking about, a lot of Alabama fans were getting a laugh at us, and which is fine. That's your right. You won the game. I don't think people are noticing like how big of an impact that's already had on Auburn recruiting. Like I
Yeah,
think if Alabama comes in and just stomps a mud hole in Auburn, like I think that's a big difference to where Q's in his first year and it's like, hey, we're already close. Like we're a
yeah,
couple pieces here and there away from actually being a good team. And I think Auburn might have got the like last laugh. I mean, if Bama wins the Natty, then no, of course not. But as a Auburn fan who's grasping at every little thing that I can, I'm 10 toes deep in recruiting right now,
yeah.
and I'm putting all my faith into you. But
You should be. I mean, I don't want to like damper it. I think Cam Coleman was coming either way. He's from Phoenix City. That's like, Auburn's
not far.
backyard,
Yeah.
essentially. I would be pissed if I'm Hugh Freeze. Like, how do we like at the previous staff, whoever was the coach before, not maybe not the head coach. I mean, we obviously know what was going on there, but the maybe like a wide receivers coach before. Like, hey, what are we doing? How do we lose this guy? Especially to A&M. I know their wide receiver coach went to Auburn and is like a great recruiter overall. Like he claims Jameis Winston when he was at Florida State under Jimbo. So like obviously he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, like this is Phoenix City. We can't let teams like A&M and Clemson come into our backyard if you're
Preach.
Auburn. Absolutely. Like that is unacceptable. South Alabama should be Auburn's. No question. I get Florida State's down there. I get LSU's down there. Like South Alabama should be owned by Auburn 100%. So I think he was coming anyways. But at the same time, like there's another guy down there that's being fought over currently that I think that y'all might flip. I haven't heard anything. There's no crystal balls on it yet, but I think he is going to try and reclassify, which I don't know why anybody would do that, but I think he is going to try to reclassify and come into the from 2025 to 2024 class. That's just what I've heard.
Yeah.
So I think that will be one to watch. I mean, it's going to be a good wide receiver room for sure. If you can find if Walter White is that guy, or if you can get maybe some transfer like a transfer quarterback to throw to him, I think you're good. I don't know if Peyton Thorne is the guy
No.
necessarily. O line is still, I mean, you're still going to have to win it in the trenches, but I mean, wide receiver on the edge is still a good place to start, especially in Hughes' offense. So I don't know, man. I mean, I get, Auburn fans should definitely be excited with what's going on down there on the recruiting trail. Um, you know, I think that it's definitely notable and something to watch for sure. I mean, this
It's
quarter, the offseason right now for quarterbacks is massive. So,
Cam Ward.
um,
Come home, buddy.
I mean, I don't know. Where's he from? Is he from down here?
I have no idea.
I don't know anything about him.
I think he
Um,
might be like a Cali. Could be wrong there.
Probably. I mean, Cali quarterbacks are cool too, but I think that, Perry Thompson, I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Perry something. Dude's a monster. It's like kind of like a Debo Samuel, maybe. I don't know if he's that fast, but he's definitely big. Um, and then Cam Coleman just looks like just kind of like a 6'3", go up and get it, whatever. So, I mean, it's definitely a good start. Definitely a good start.
Yeah. I've been screaming it for a couple years now. Like just recruit in house. Like if we running out there with a team with the best players from Alabama and we lose, I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
And we're letting Texas A&M and LSU and Georgia and all these other teams come in and take the best like 5-star guys from Alabama. That can't happen.
unacceptable. What makes me so mad, I am cool with that because Alabama's not going to get every guy in state. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's not that it's different, but like not every good player is going to go to one school. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if Auburn shares the bucket, that's totally cool with me. I want Auburn to be really good because selfishly, if we win the Iron Bowl, I want that to be a great win. I don't want it to be just a great rivalry. I want us to beat a top 10 Iron Bowl team, or I mean top 10 Auburn team in the Iron Bowl and go to the SEC championship, for that. And now even more now that there's no East and West, like that's going to be even bigger. So that selfishly, that's I want you guys to be good as well. Um, if we can pull out those victories, those are huge wins.
Yeah.
So like with 12 teams, it's even more now with 12 team playoff. But that being said, like when other teams come into Alabama and get like the edge guy that's going to Tennessee from Vestavia, like that kind of stuff just runs me up a wall. Like I can't stand it. Like how do we miss? Or like Tez Johnson being a 3-star from Pinson, he's like Bo Nix's brother. How does he leave the state? How do those guys leave the state? How does he
Can
go to like how does he go to Troy and nobody is like, whoa, that guy runs a 4.4? How, maybe we could use him. How's that happen? I don't get it. So um I don't know, man. I'm glad to see Hugh recruiting well. I think that's big for you guys. Um, do you want to stay on football or do you want to transition to basketball real quick before we close it out?
yeah, we can what do you want to do? You want to say basketball?
I don't
Because we got
know.
a big week. Because I don't really think much has happened. I know App State beat us this morning.
I
And
mean, they stormed the court. Who knows why? I think it's because they got a whooping from Troy yesterday when they thought that they were just going to be a cakewalk. So, maybe they just had to take some anger out and storm the court. I think that's pretty embarrassing from them out of like a decent basketball school. I mean, any North Carolina basketball school, why are you storming the court? You're supposed to hold yourself to a higher standard, whatever. I mean, nothing against you guys, but Auburn's not ranked. Why are you
yeah,
storming the
we're not
court?
even ranked right now.
Why are you storming the court?
That's
I'm not the
just
fun police. I promise I'm not the fun police. I'm all about court stormings, but at least be a top 10 team.
right.
That's got to be the stand. Like that, 10 and above. Storm the court every time you beat. I don't care if you're number one. You beat a top 10 team at home. Storm that court. That's a big win. Unranked versus unranked. What are we doing?
Yeah, we'll dive into basketball next week because both of us have a big one
Yeah.
next Saturday. So
I just had
next
to get
Sunday will
that
be a
off
good
my
time.
chest. Like I'm not going to defend Auburn much. I wish we stormed the court. I wish we were like Clemson. Let's storm the court every dub. Maybe not the football field. Let's storm the court, just to kind of make our basketball presence known. Because this year we're going to need some help. Um, it's just not our year. It's y'all's year.
Right.
As far as the agreement goes. But
Even
um,
years are ours, odd years are y'all's.
I'm cool with that. That's fair trade. Shake the hand in Montgomery and get on with it. Or where, no, I guess Montevallo is technically the center of the state. We'll shake it there, and the Geneva Convention will sign our little treaty and get out of there. But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know about that one with the Appalachian State.
Well, that's all I got.
That's all I got, man. Roll Tide. Um, Kind of a great season with new coordinators, new quarterback. I'm really excited for the playoff. Basketball season's here. SEC is just a month away. SEC play, month away. So what a great time. And of course, happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for everybody. If you made it this deep in the episode, thank you for listening. I'm hashtag thankful, hashtag blessed. Um, I just appreciate you guys. I appreciate my co-host. I appreciate Zoom. And I appreciate Nick Saban as well.
That was nice.
You got to give thanks.
Hashtag
This
thankful.
this time of year, you got to give thanks. You got to give thanks to the hashtag rivals at Auburn. Getting my blood pressure up. I appreciate it. I need to be kept in check. And I feel like that's likewise.
For sure. All right. Love you guys.